Good morning to all of our viewers. Happy Thursday. We are so excited to be back, and this time spotlighting an incredible entrepreneur in the field in nonprofit and far beyond. So we are thrilled to welcome Britney Robbins here today from the Gray Matter Experience. Britney, I'm going to turn it over to you right away. I'd love for you to just introduce a little bit about yourself. And for our viewers who are unfamiliar with your organization, the Gray Matter Experience, can you give us a little background and tell us about that?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me this morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Britney Robbins, founder and CEO of the Gray Matter Experience. Personally, a little bit about myself. I am originally from Quincy, Illinois, so 5 hours away from Chicago, but I've been here for 10 years. And so I've been sort of working in this tech entrepreneurship innovation space for about the last 7 years. Started in a startup company called Doggy Loot, which was a portfolio company of a venture capital firm called Sandbox, and later left that organization to join Future Founders, where I was working with youth to engage them with entrepreneurship, and then left Future Founders in 2016 and started the Gray Matter Experience. So Gray Matter is really a platform, opportunity, experiential program for Black high school students to learn about entrepreneurship in a very tangible way that incorporates sort of cultural nuances, incorporates different points and promotion of agency, self-agency, and really gives them sort of an opportunity and sandbox to not only learn about entrepreneurship, but to be able to build businesses that hopefully will impact their communities in some way. And so we've been doing this since 2016, and I'm excited to share more and dive into how we get it done.
Awesome. And you touched on that a little bit, but the Gray Matter Experience is really this blended intersection of entrepreneurship, education, and youth. So when you started this work, when you founded Gray Matter Experience, what pulled those three pillars to unite to create Gray Matter Experience?
Yeah, I think I just initially saw the interconnectivity of all three of those sectors. When I was working for Future Founders, having not been from Chicago, it was sort of my first introduction to the real Chicago, right? I had lived in the suburbs prior to moving to the city, and mostly always worked in, River North or the West Loop. And so when I started working for Future Founders, the beauty of it was that we got to go into South and West Side communities. And so driving to these different neighborhoods, I was always baffled on how is this the same city? How are we still in the same construct of, Chicago, but yet all these vacant lots, just so much disinvestment in Black and Brown communities. And so having not been, from here, it took me a while to wrap my head around that. And then I started to see it sort of play out in our students, in the lack of access and resources that they get, and how big they're able to think and what they believe they're capable of, and what they have access to. And so for me, it sort of always tugged on my heartstrings, being able to spend that time with students in the classroom and encourage them and sort of open up their minds to these new possibilities, but then leaving those areas to go back into these more affluent neighborhoods and understanding there was no real connection happening. While the students may have been learning a bit more and may have a couple more terms and concepts, their circumstances and situations weren't changing. And so that to me got me really thinking about how do we sort of shift the dynamic so that this is not just a learning opportunity, but it's a real opportunity for them to get outside the classroom and leverage their community, leverage technology and innovation, these things that they're using every single day, just in, as we would call it, sort of irresponsible ways with social media and all of these, distraction apps. But really, if we're able to empower them in a way where we give them agency and we give them access to this content information and allow them to build something that they want to see, but not only build it, but then start to push resources and access and connections to them. What does that look like? And so I wanted to, again, sort of blend these industries, because I think they all are very much connected. I think that the things that you learn in programs, they will very much show up in your first job. They'll very much show up in the way that you want to approach your career. And so I wanted to make that blended and be intentional about marrying those, because I don't think there's a separation of state. I think they all very much play into each other. And so we wanted students to have that experience very early on. And I think for Black communities specifically, it's important that they have sort of that sandbox to experiment and to fail fast and to, have a safe space where they feel they can be creative and not judged. And so I wanted all of those things that I got to experience working in a startup environment to be replicated in a program that students got a chance to experience. And so that's kind of how that merger happened.
For the logistics of the program itself too, because it sounds like it's a long-term kind of high dosage where it's not just a one-day experience. Are you interested in business? Are you interested in entrepreneurship? Are you interested in how this looks 5 years from now? But it sounds like it's an ongoing process. So have you worked with students who have, come back for programs multiple times, or can you talk to kind of the longevity of a single program? What does that look like? And why is it important that it is something that you said they have a chance to fail fast and kind of tinker around and make a mess of it? Why is that important to the success of your program?
Yeah, I think it's important because it's entrepreneurship, for one. And I think that's just the nature of entrepreneurship is you have to be innovative. You have to be someone who is able to sort of build the plane as you are flying it. And I think us being able to incorporate those nodes into the program really not only help the students to better grow and develop their own skills, but it really does help them to ease into this sort of world of entrepreneurship a little easier because they understand that these things that they may have been taught, failing is bad, but we're sort of reframing what that means for them. And so the way I always say it is, if I had a gray matter when I was 15 or 16, I am certain that I would be a billionaire right now, just because most of the things that I'm teaching the students, I was learning as I was going along as well. And so for our communities, a lot of times our students don't get access to that. They don't get access to this breadth of sort of experience. And the way that I explain entrepreneurship is it's this contained experiment, right? You get to learn about sales and marketing and pitching and accounting, finance, all of these things that would take you a lifetime to build all of these skills. But here you are at 15 getting access to all of these things. So it just makes it easier sort of to navigate through what it is you actually want to do. And so that's sort of how we've structured our programs. Our programs have iterated all 4 years. We've added more. We've sort of reframed and strengthened some of the things that we've done, but sort of the tenets and the nodes are, we have a boot camp, which is 12 weeks. It's about 60 hours of programming over the course of those 12 weeks. And the whole goal there is to really bring in students who maybe are loosely familiar with entrepreneurship, but it's mostly what we call our exposure program. And so we're bringing them in, we're teaching them sort of the basic tenets of entrepreneurship, those basic concepts, but we're also incorporating a ton more just so they have sort of a full breadth of what's going on in the world around them. So they're learning business concepts. We're taking them on hands-on STEM field trips across the city so that they can learn new technology and innovation and really just understand, how do I take this knowledge and apply it to something tangible, and also see how it's applied in some of these companies that I use on a daily basis. We go to Twitter, we go to Facebook, different places like that, so they can really see how this works in the real world. And then we also bring in a ton of guest speakers who are industry experts in whatever content they're teaching, as well as we have sort of these fireside chats with successful entrepreneurs of color that have sort of gained success, so that students can have those sort of one-on-one intimate conversations to really learn, what does it look like to build a business as a founder of color, as well as being able to have those direct conversations. And so that's sort of stage one, is really framing what entrepreneurship is and giving them sort of a space to create. So the goal with that program is to really to get them to collaborate in teams to come up with a business idea that would help their community in some way, shape, or form. And so from that program, they matriculate into our accelerator program. The accelerator is really an opportunity for students that have business ideas or are already running businesses and just don't know how to get it to the next level, or really need more supports and resources to grow. We bring them into the accelerator to give them sort of one-on-one support to help them grow the business, with the end goal being to actually incorporate and launch that business. And so those have been our two direct service programs. We also have a couple indirect where we go into the classroom and teach entrepreneurship. And then we have one where we partner with organizations like After School Matters or any youth-facing organization to license our curriculum so that students can learn to monetize the skill set they're learning in that program. And so there's all these different nodes, and next year our programs will look a little bit different as, we're learning as we're going and really trying to be as customized as possible, because we understand the nuances of Black communities. And while building businesses is great, there are a lot of foundational sort of tenets that have to be built up before that. And so we're starting to sort of break down our programs even more now into what are some of those soft skills, this sort of social emotional learning. What are those things that students need even before they can believe that they can be an entrepreneur?
Right.
How to build those pieces into our program. And so absolutely, our students come back. We've had students that have participated in both the in-school program, the boot camp, and the accelerator. At this point, we have, I believe, 6 fully incorporated teen-run businesses that we've actually launched from the program. And so we'll be bringing back 3 of them this summer to work with them individually to sort of get their businesses sort of revamped and rebooted because of COVID. So making sure that they've sort of have a plan on how to move forward and understanding how it's affected them. And so, yeah, we do everything we can to really, like I said, provide this sort of full breadth experience. And what we want to see sort of eventually is that our programs mirror what's happening in the adult space, right? We would like to build a program track that is very replicable of how an entrepreneur enters the market as an adult. And so being able to mirror that so that when they come out of our programs, they're a lot better suited to go into an accelerator program as an adult or to apply for funding and get VC money, so really just trying to make this a full breadth experience so that they're prepared, because I don't know that as I was building a business, there was any one place for me to go and get that sort of hand holding through the whole process. So that's what we want to be.
So in addition then to teaching and harnessing student innovation, there's also another element that I know, kind of perusing the website, perusing your YouTube, this element of connectivity. So how does connectivity impact the work that you've already mentioned? And then how does connectivity also play into the equity issues that Gray Matter Experience is really working to dismantle?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Connectivity is one of our main pillars for sure. It is, for me, Gray Matter Experience, I wanted it to be an experiential learning zone, essentially. And so a lot of that has to do with learning from other people. And so whether it's students, whether it's adults, we try to simulate those experiential learning opportunities. And so connectivity is huge. So all of our students, when they come into the boot camp, they come from all across the city. And so the first thing that we want them to do is choose groups, select groups that they want to work in. And so that's sort of their first stage of like, what does this collaboration look like? Because we want them to understand that there's more synergy than they think, right? You have this long-standing sort of beef with the West Side and the South Side, and all of our West Side students think they're better than the South Side students and vice versa. But they realize when they get into groups, there's not much separation of their experiences. And so being able to have those conversations with one another and say like, oh, I thought this was unique to my community, but really seeing that, no, this is a broader issue that a lot of our communities are going through, helps them to sort of meet each other on that baseline level and build from that. And so I think that's sort of stage one of it, is really giving them that peer-to-peer collaboration and connectivity. The second part of that is our mentors and our facilitators, and really bringing in people that look like them and those that don't, but really trying to give them as much access to adults that have found success in entrepreneurship or found success in business that they can really learn from in a very short amount of time. I think for my own personal journey, being able to learn from other people's experience shaved years off of my own journey. And so when we're able to get folks in front of our students that can share successes and failures and really share some of the gems and lifelong lessons that they picked up along the way that can help our students better shape and sort of reframe how they see their lives going, it really does create a space for them to sort of reimagine then how they want to show up. Mm-hmm. And so it's also that mentor piece of bringing in the connectivity there. On another level and layer, we have the connectivity between our mentors. And a lot of them are coming from different industries, different companies. Some are entrepreneurs, some are business professionals. And so the networks and sort of collaboration that they've been able to have amongst each other is another layer. So we're really trying to build this community, right? And in building our Gray Matter community, we want it to be reflective of the larger community. We want it to be a space where no matter what you look like, what your skills are, this is a safe place, right? For you to come and have dialogue and have discussion about race in a way that you're not having it other places, to see race play out in a way that you may not have seen it before, right? Being able to see all of these successful professionals and entrepreneurs for our Black students who have not seen this anywhere. When they hear about entrepreneurship, they hear about Elon Musk, they hear about, Mark Zuckerberg, they hear about all these people that have been wildly successful but don't look like them. And then when they do hear about successful Black entrepreneurs, it's your LeBron Jameses or, your entertainers or your sports stars. And so us being able to sort of break those barriers down and put them in the room with people that look like them, that find success, it really just starts to reframe again, what does community mean? Right. How do I start to leverage these people and these connections for my own personal advancement, and know that there's a community of people that support me and that want to see me succeed, and a community where I feel safe in that, and I feel supported, and I feel like I'm easily able to articulate my thoughts and build ideas. And so that has been, I would say, one of the magic nodes of our program, is just that community that we build, because it really is sort of in all the programs I've worked with, been a part of, there's just a level of authenticity, I would say, in the program that I don't think students get a chance to see from adults a lot. And so that is the space that we want to continue to foster and continue to grow, because I think it makes a world of a difference where a student can show up as themselves, be supported as that self, and then walk away having built relationships with folks that they will take on with them for a lifetime. And so that's really the environment that we wanted to create through that connectivity.
I love that. And if we have any viewers who are interested kind of in just learning about that community, are there resources available for, people who might be interested in having these conversations, especially as it relates to the climate we're in currently? We're understanding how race plays into a lot of entrepreneurship, or how race plays into kind of the expansion of communities that have been ignored in the past. Are there some resources from Gray Matter Experience where people can learn more?
So we haven't posted any official resources. We do a lot of it sort of internally. And so what I will say, if folks are interested in getting involved, that is part of sort of the training onboarding process that we do. And so if any folks are interested, we have a sort of intake form on our website. But outside of that, even outside of Gray Matter Experience, I'm encouraged by the amount of resources that I have seen surface over the last 2 to 3 weeks, and helping folks to sort of break down those barriers. And I think a lot of times when we think about race, it's this taboo, sort of conversation that folks don't want to address. It's sort of the elephant in the room. We tiptoe around it. And it's just because we've never really had great framing on how to talk about race. We feel like when we talk about it, it has to be this or that. And it's not. It's very much a real thing, and it's a part of our daily and lived experiences. And so I think being able to see some of those resources come up and really re-educate all of ourselves on how do we have these tough conversations, how do we make it sort of more palpable for people to understand, and realize that it's not this far-fetched idea, but it plays out in every single thing, every single day. And so I think I'm encouraged by that, because I think through this current climate, we will have a lot of people that walk away with a better understanding of race and what it means to be Black, and what it means to be an ally, and what it means to truly collaborate authentically, and really build that community amongst self. And I'm hoping that that's what comes out of this.
Looking deeper kind of in the Gray Matter Experience along those same lines, it's really targeted to serve Black teens and Black communities. Mm-hmm. And again, in this climate of people trying to understand where systems have failed, what was, and I know you've already touched on a little bit, but what was kind of the biggest gap that you saw when you founded Gray Matter Experience, saying this is nowhere to be found anywhere else? Mm-hmm. And kind of what were those first steps to start tackling those gaps?
So when I initially came up with the idea for Gray Matter, it was a lot to do with, I was working already in the space. Okay. I saw how organizations were operating and working with our youth. And as I said, it's one thing to educate a youth on what is entrepreneurship and here's a business idea. And it's another thing to really start to provide them resources and connections and access to. And as I started doing research, so I broadened my search and just kind of looked across the country to see how are people engaging youth in entrepreneurship. And what I saw was the most impactful programs. And I define that impact by what are those next steps, right? Now that they've learned about it, what are we doing about it? Most of those programs, if not all of them, not one of them were servicing Black students. And having been an entrepreneur, a Black woman entrepreneur at that, and understanding my own journey, I realized that that was something that was necessary, is that if we leave this gap and allow our students to wait until they're 30, 40, 50 to get their first hands on a real entrepreneurship experience that is really providing them access to, not just building ideas, but really providing them access to the things that they need to make this a reality, that we are really setting our communities back even more.
Right.
So for me, after sort of doing that initial research and seeing that it doesn't exist, it was like, okay, well, here's the opportunity to create that. And so I was really able to build it, like I said, a lot off my own personal experiences. Is what are those things that I didn't get? What were those things that I wish somebody would have told me? What are the things that I needed to learn in a very quick, short amount of time, but it needed to be impactful. So I started to build the program based on that. And really just trying to incorporate sort of those cultural nuances as much as possible, because like I said, it's not enough to just teach target market and competitive advantage, right? We also have to teach how do you network, even to build your network so that you can have access to resources, so that once you have a business built, you can promote it properly, right? And I don't think our communities get enough of that sort of soft skills in the programs that exist. And so we wanted to sort of build that out through the Gray Matter experience. And for me, ownership is a huge, the racial wealth gap is extremely wide right now, right? And the opportunity that we have as a Black community is to begin to close that by economically empowering ourselves. And for me, economic empowerment equals ownership. And so if we are thinking about that systematically, long-term, Gray Matter is a long-term solution, right? We're not going to see these kids starting, Fortune 500 companies tomorrow, but in this exposure and this training and this access that they get at 15 and starting to build that muscle. And then by the time they're 30, they're able to build a company that is more representative of their community, that's more sustainable. They've made smarter decisions. They've already failed 4 times over, from 15 to 30. So now they're in a much riper position to really add value to their community. And so that was kind of our goal, is how do we, yes, we want to work on things on a short-term basis. So that's where all those soft skills and collaboration and creativity, that's where all that comes in, and really those sort of social emotional learning skills and, just the tangible skills of learning entrepreneurship. But we will see most of our success in the long term. And that's what I'm most excited about, is how will this experience change the trajectory for the students that have gone through our program, and how will we see that represented inside of communities over time? And like I said, 15 years ago, had I had this, I would be, in a completely different place. And so that's the story that we're hoping to be able to share and to achieve with doing this work early. Is really sort of closing those gaps long term, and just reframing and repositioning what students are capable of, what's possible for them, that they don't have to wait, that there are stop gaps for students right now. If you do want to create a business, don't sit on that idea for 10 years. We want it to be a place where our students could feel supported by people that look like them, and not only support, but get the help that they actually needed, whether that's seed funding, mentorship, access to networks, whatever that looks like. We wanted to be that place and space for them to be able to tap into.
I heard you also say too that each year you're iterating the program, and so it's kind of growing with the student population that you're bringing in. It's growing with the ideas and the participants. Ideally, you may not have this answer right now, but where do you hope to expand Gray Matter experience, or how do you hope to see it grow in the next few years?
Yeah, we're working on that right now, and so we're building a lot more custom solutions to sort of what we've seen. And so I'll give you sort of a preview of one of the programs that we'll be launching. A lot of programs that work with youth now and entrepreneurship, us included, focus a lot on sort of these new technology business, the sexy side of entrepreneurship, right? Apps and like all of these great things that leverage technology, which is great. But at the same time, a lot of our students don't either have access to technology, they're not tech savvy. So those are things that, yes, we would like them to get to that point. But the reality is we have a lot of hustler entrepreneurs in our community. And we have a lot of student hustlers that want to sell t-shirts or sell beats or sell different things that they're sort of passionate and creative about. So how do we create programs that's more inclusive of that? Right. So we'll be launching a program either this fall or early 2021 that is specifically for that youth entrepreneur. For those who don't necessarily want to build an app, they don't necessarily need to know the lean startup model and all of these sexy terms, but they want to know, how can I make enough money to pay for college? How can I make enough money to pay off my car before I go to college? X, Y, and Z, right? So building in those sort of custom solutions to take students from where they're at to where they're going. So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to iterate on the programs to provide sort of those layers within the program that our students need. Our hope is that we're able to take this nationally. And so we did have plans to do that before COVID, and we were on track to do that, but it's kind of been on pause. So at some point we will go nationally. The other plan is our auxiliary program, which is the program where we partner with organizations like yours. That has really picked up steam. And so what we're seeing is a lot of organizations are really wanting sort of that additional layer of entrepreneurship on their programming, but don't want to recreate the wheel, right? They're not entrepreneurs, they don't get it. And so we want to be able to provide those sort of opportunities for other organizations, and thus sort of increasing our pipeline of students that would participate, increasing the pipeline of students that would be sort of a good fit for our accelerator program, where we can actually help them grow those businesses. So the goal is really to become, the place and space that teens go when they want to build a business, but specifically for Black teens, and specifically with that cultural focus and that cultural lens. As all of this sort of racial uprising is happening, what I realized about Gray Matter is we are really, I would say, the largest Black-owned, Black-serving youth entrepreneurship program. I'll say in Chicago, but I'll be bold and say nationally, because I haven't seen anything else that sort of rivals us. And so if that is the case, how do we lean into that more? And how do we really, again, continue to grow the organization in a way that is very respectful of our communities, is responsive to our communities, and is sort of the first stop of this pipeline of this Black entrepreneurship ecosystem, right? Can we create a model that works here that we can replicate in the adult space, so that when people come in from start to finish, they have support across the board and they leave out with funding to grow their business, and their business then impacts their community, right? That's what we want to see Gray Matter become. That's what we're working on to make it happen. And so fingers crossed, if all continues to go well, that will be the story that we're able to tell.
I think that's awesome. I also think hearing from the Gray Matter side of it, there's so many little pieces to pull to continue to grow for your actual students, the ones that have been there since day one, or the ones that are continuing to enroll in your programs. What do you hope that they walk away from the experience? Whether, again, it's, as you were mentioning, the customized programs, are they doing something on a smaller scale or a big scale, but what do you hope all of your students walk away with?
Yeah, I want them to walk away with sort of more clarity on who they are and what they want to do, and sort of how they want to use, rather, I'll say how they want to use those skills to show up in the world. I think that is a big part of what we teach our students, is like, you don't have to have it all figured out. But what we want to do here is provide as many opportunities for you to be reflective, really sort of evaluate self and learn skills and grow skills, so that by the time you come out, here's your options. Maybe entrepreneurship is not necessarily for me, but I really liked the lesson on sales. So I want to look into maybe going into a sales industry. Or entrepreneurship's very interesting. I want to learn more though. Like I want to go to college and major or minor in business. Or no, I'm certain entrepreneurship is for me. I'm ready to get in the game. Like now I know that I can do this on a small scale now as a youth and have support. But I also know that the relationships that I was able to build in Gray Matter will help position me for internships, will help position me for a job, is creating this sort of pipeline and connecting me to my next steps. And so that's really what we want our students to walk away feeling, is that they're more supported, they have a strong network in Gray Matter, that whatever they choose to do, that they can leverage this experience for connections, resources, access, etc. But also they've learned, even if not about entrepreneurship, they've learned about how they are as a creative, as an innovator, as a problem solver, as a team member. So we want them to sort of walk away with sort of an enhanced sense of self.
That's awesome. And I'm so thankful that you were able to kind of talk about Gray Matter, talk about yourself and your experience and how that's shaped the organization that we have learned about today. I would love to end as well in terms of resources I heard you talk about, you had some student business launches already. So that, are there ways that people can check those out, support them, or just learn more about those student-specific businesses that have already been created because of Gray Matter?
Absolutely. On our website, we have a tab specifically for them. It's called Companies. So you can go there. We have a tab for students that just shows all the students that have gone through our programs and sort of what they've been up to and what they're passionate about. And then the Companies tab shows a bit more about the companies that we've launched, and those that have websites, it links directly to their website so you can learn more. And so all of them are sort of in this stage of seeking funding, seeking mentorship, seeking sort of volunteers. And so if that's something you all are interested in doing, you can connect to them directly through our website. And then for other folks who just want to sort of get more involved with Gray Matter and just sort of work with the students who are still sort of in that ideation phase, we have a volunteer link on our website that explains more about our different volunteer opportunities and how folks can get involved.
Excellent. And then one more question popped into my head too. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear, now that you've been in the space since 2016 and hopefully feel like you're able to kind of bite into more of the community and kind of understand the surroundings, where do you see barriers still continuing to build, and how might Gray Matter experience knock those down slowly?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that question, the answer to that question would have been different a month ago, but it seems like a lot of those barriers are being broken down right now. In the past month, we have had more visibility, more outreach, more donations, more anything than we've ever had before, more support than we've ever had. So I'm hopeful that that is a long-term sort of approach that people are doing and not a reaction to what's going on.
Right.
And I think if that's the case, then I think we'll have a lot more opportunities in the future to build long-term partnerships with companies, with other organizations, with our community and like local businesses. I hope that to be true. And so I think a big part of it is is really the connectivity of the city. And for so long, it's been everyone sort of in their silos and everybody sort of working alone and letting everybody sort of stay in their own lane and just not stepping outside of our own sort of space to say, how can we better support, or how can we create a pipeline to, or how can we collaborate with? And so I think everyone's sort of in that space now. And I'm grateful for it, because I think a lot of Black businesses right now are getting attention that we should have been getting all along, but it's great that it's happening now. And so I do hope that through that change, that we do start to see some of this more connectivity, because I think that's really what it's going to take is even if you're not able to directly partner, being able to make connections on behalf of someone, or being able to open up your network too. And so that has sort of been the biggest barrier for us through this time, is just having the visibility, the support, the access to folks that we needed. And so now I think that's starting to happen. So fingers crossed. Like I said, this is something that is building for a long-term sort of shift and not just a temporary, but that would be sort of my answer to that.
If there was anything you could leave our viewers with today, do you have advice for them as an entrepreneur, or just information about Gray Matter? I just want to kind of turn over the floor to you with kind of last thoughts.
Sure. I'll leave a couple things. I will say to our white counterparts and allies and non-Black folks, I think now is as ripe a time as any to do the work and really do the work and understand the nuances, of our community, the nuances of being Black. And I think a lot of times folks just don't understand the layered sort of inequalities, injustices, disinvestments that have happened in our community. And so I really encourage everyone, pick up a book, watch a documentary, talk to Black folks, do your research to really try to understand and see where you have sort of played into the system, where there are opportunities for you to break down sort of those silos and challenge privilege. So that's part A. Part B is our youth are our future. And I really am leaning into this more and more and more because I'm so encouraged by how our young people continue to step up and just take charge. And I think, for so long they get such a bad rap, and I get it. I was a youth at a period of time. But I think what is going to be important for adults to understand about youth right now is the more that we empower them and give them agency and give them freedom and space to create, the more empowered they're going to be to do good with what they have. Students have access to everything that we have access to as adults right now. And so if we're able to teach them how to use those skills and the access that they do have in a positive way, in a way that benefits others, in a way that's not so individualistic, but is more on that community. How can you serve? How do you be a servant leader? I think we are really going to position our kids to truly lead the future. And I encourage folks to, if you're not involved with the youth program, there are tons of them around Chicago. Volunteer, step up, get involved, give our youth a chance, and open up some doors for them, because a lot of times the reason that they're not performing or not showing up is they just don't know how, or they haven't had access to. And so I encourage every adult to try to mentor or have some sort of engagement with youth at as much as you can. And then the third thing I'll say is just support us and support other Black-led grassroots organizations. I think there are tons of us out here that have been doing the work for a long time and have just had not as much visibility and support as we should have. And so again, now is as good a time as any to really see how can you better support, even if it's sharing on social media, giving visibility to. I think, platforms like this are great. It's just opening us up into new markets and new audiences. And so grateful for this opportunity. And again, I hope these continue to happen. And I hope to see way more connectivity across Chicago, but then in all of our cities across the world. I think now is a really great time for us to really think about the collective of humanity and how do we all get involved in that experience.
Well, Brittany, we are grateful for you, and not only all that you have created in the last 4 years, but well before that, and being able to share your experiences again with the youth of Chicago. And again, thank you so much for taking some time this morning to chat about your organization and your work. And we're excited to continue to see you all grow and continue to listen and learn to what is needed for Chicago community and beyond. So thank you again. If any of our viewers have questions, you can drop them in the comments. Brittany will have the link a little bit later. And again, thank you so much for everyone watching. Have a great rest of your morning.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, guys.